Being born in North Korea is like being assigned a fate before you even take your first breath. From the moment a child enters the world, the government decides everything about their life: what they will eat, where they will live, what job they will have, even what they are allowed to think. It all starts with something called the Songbun system. This is a strict caste system that ranks families based on loyalty to the regime. If your ancestors fought alongside Kim Il-sung, you are lucky. You might get to live in the capital, eat decent food, and have a future. But if your family has any history of betrayal, even something as small as having a relative who escaped to South Korea decades ago, your life is over before it begins. Poor children are born into villages where food is scarce, hospitals barely function, and schools serve as nothing more than training centers for blind obedience. There is no such thing as choosing what you want to be when you grow up. The government already knows. If your family is low-ranking, you will work in the fields, in a factory, or worse, in a labor camp. Even before they can walk, children are exposed to constant propaganda. Their first words are often the names of the supreme leaders. In daycare, they are told stories of Kim Jong-un's miracles and how he is wiser than any human to ever exist. Every home has a mandatory portrait of the leaders. If a fire breaks out, parents are expected to save the portraits before saving their own children. By the time they start school, kids already understand one thing: the state owns them. Their life is not theirs to live. Their only purpose is to serve. And that's if they are lucky enough to survive childhood at all. Hunger is the first thing North Korean children learn. It starts as soon as they are born. For poor families, mothers are often too malnourished to produce milk. Babies cry endlessly from hunger, but there is no food to give them. By the time they are toddlers, their stomachs are already bloated from malnutrition. Their hair turns a strange reddish color, a sign of severe starvation. Their tiny bodies are weak. Some stop growing altogether. Many never make it past their first few years of life. For those who do, the suffering never stops. The government provides food rations, but they are never enough. Families survive on cornmeal, wild plants, and whatever scraps they can find. Meat is a luxury almost no one can afford. During the worst famines, children eat grass, tree bark, or even dirt just to have something in their stomachs. In school, hunger is constant. Kids faint from exhaustion. Some collapse in the middle of class and never wake up. Teachers ignore it. They are starving too. The worst part? The government pretends none of this is happening. They tell the world there is no hunger. They show fake stores filled with food that no one can actually buy. Meanwhile, millions of children waste away in silence. And those who complain, they disappear. But school is not just a place of starvation. It is something far more disturbing. In North Korea, school is not about learning, it is about obedience. From the first day, children are trained to worship the supreme leaders. Every morning starts the same way. Students bow to portraits of Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un. They recite chants praising their greatness. By the time they can read, they have already memorized entire books about their so-called achievements. But what about math, science, or history? Those subjects exist, but they are filled with lies. Math problems are written like this: if you kill 5 American imperialists and then kill 3 more, how many enemies have you eliminated? Science is twisted to fit propaganda, with students learning that their leader can control the weather. And history? It is rewritten to make North Korea seem like the greatest nation on earth. Teachers do not just grade based on knowledge, they evaluate loyalty. If a child hesitates before praising Kim Jong-un, it is noted. If they do not cry hard enough when watching a speech, their family could be investigated. Parents warn their children, never say anything bad. Even at home, the walls have ears. And the worst part? Kids are forced to turn against their own families. Schools encourage children to report parents who speak negatively about the regime. If a father makes a joke about the government, his own child might be the reason he disappears. But school is not just about brainwashing, it is also about survival. Because for many kids, school means forced labor. In North Korea, children do not just go to school, they work, and they work hard. By the time they are 6, kids are already being sent to the fields. They carry heavy loads, plant crops, and dig ditches for hours under the scorching sun. If they collapse, they are beaten. Teachers do not treat them like students, they treat them like slaves. But the fields are not the worst jobs. Some kids are sent to factories, forced to handle dangerous chemicals without protection. Others work in coal mines, crawling through tunnels filled with toxic dust. If a child refuses to work, they are punished. Some are locked in freezing rooms for hours. Others are forced to kneel on sharp stones until their skin bleeds. The message is clear: obey or suffer. And all of this is done in the name of education. The government calls it patriotic labor. They say it teaches children the value of hard work. In reality, it is nothing more than exploitation. But while most kids live in suffering, there is a small group that experiences a completely different reality. Not all North Korean children suffer. A small number live like royalty. These are the children of the elite, high-ranking officials, military leaders, and the ruling class. They live in Pyongyang, the capital city, where life is nothing like the rest of the country. They eat meat, fruit, and even imported snacks from Europe. They attend private schools with access to real education. They have computers, cell phones, and designer clothes. Some even travel abroad. While millions of children starve, these kids go horseback riding, swim in Olympic-sized pools, and play in massive amusement parks built just for them. They grow up believing their country is perfect, never seeing the suffering outside their bubble. But privilege does not always mean safety. Even the elite live in fear. One wrong move, one sign of disloyalty, and everything can be taken away. Their entire family can vanish overnight, and while they live in comfort, another group of children fights to survive in the shadows, the forgotten ones, the ones with nothing. In North Korea, there is a word for children who have nothing. They are called Kotjebi, wandering sparrows. These are the homeless street children, the ones who have lost everything. Some were abandoned by starving parents who could not feed them. Others watched their families die. Many simply ran away, escaping from homes where there was no food, no safety, no future. They roam the streets, digging through trash, begging for scraps. Some sell small stolen goods in illegal markets. Others trade their bodies for a handful of rice. They sleep in train stations, under bridges, or in dark alleys, huddling together for warmth. The government does not help them. Instead, they are treated like pests. Police round them up and send them to state-run orphanages, places that are worse than the streets. There they are beaten, starved, and left to die in filthy rooms filled with disease. But the worst part? No one is allowed to talk about them. The government pretends they do not exist. Foreign visitors never see them because before important events, officials sweep the streets clean, locking up or killing the Kotjebi so they do not ruin the illusion of a perfect society. And these children are not just abandoned by the state, some are hunted. Because in North Korea, if your family has the wrong past, your future is already decided. Imagine being sent to prison for something your grandfather did. In North Korea, this is normal. The government follows a policy called 3 generations of punishment. If one person commits a crime, even something as simple as listening to a banned song, their entire family is punished. Parents, grandparents, children, no one is spared. This means there are kids growing up in prison camps who have done nothing wrong. They were born behind bars, their only crime being the blood in their veins. Inside these camps, life is brutal. Children wake up before sunrise, forced into back-breaking labor. They dig tunnels, carry heavy stones, and work in freezing temperatures with no shoes. If they slow down, they are beaten. If they try to escape, they are executed. Food is almost non-existent. Many resort to eating rats, insects, or even the bodies of dead prisoners just to stay alive. For these children, there is no school, no future, no hope. They will live and die inside the barbed wire fences, never knowing what freedom feels like. And while some kids suffer in prison camps, others are being trained for something just as horrifying. In most countries, children go to school to learn math, reading, and science. In North Korea, they learn how to fire a gun. Military training starts as early as 5 years old. Tiny children, barely tall enough to hold a rifle, are taught how to march, shoot, and fight. By the time they are in elementary school, they are already practicing with bayonets, stabbing straw dummies meant to represent American enemies. At 7, they learn hand-to-hand combat. By 10, they are trained in survival tactics, preparing for the day they will be called to defend the regime. The government fills their heads with stories of war. They are told that America, South Korea, and Japan want to destroy their country, that one day they will have to fight. They are taught that dying for Kim Jong-un is the greatest honor. And some children do not just train. Some are taken from their families and turned into child soldiers, sent to secret military programs where they will spend their entire childhood preparing for war. But not all children believe what they are told. Some secretly dream of another life, and some take dangerous risks just to see the outside world. Despite the government's control, some North Korean children find a way to see the truth. Foreign media is completely banned. Watching a South Korean drama, listening to Western music, or reading a foreign book is considered treason. If caught, the punishment can be death. But that does not stop kids from trying. Smuggled USB drives filled with South Korean movies, American music, and Chinese TV shows are passed around in secret. Children watch them in dark rooms, always ready to unplug and hide if they hear footsteps. For many, seeing a different world for the first time is shocking. They realize they have been lied to. They see streets filled with bright lights, stores overflowing with food, families laughing and living without fear. But knowing the truth is dangerous. If caught with foreign media, children are beaten, sent to labor camps, or even executed. Some are forced to stand in front of their entire school while authorities destroy their forbidden videos, making an example out of them. Yet no matter how many are punished, the truth still spreads. More and more children are waking up to the reality of their country. And once they know, they can never go back. But knowing the truth does not fill an empty stomach. And for many, the hunger is so bad, they will eat anything. In North Korea, hunger is so severe that children will eat anything to survive. Grass, tree bark, and weeds become meals. In the countryside, kids spend hours digging for edible roots, hoping to find something that will keep them alive for another day. Insects are a common source of protein. Children catch grasshoppers, crickets, and even cockroaches, roasting them over small fires. Some eat rats, if they are lucky enough to catch one. Desperation leads to horrifying choices. In the worst famines, there have been cases of parents killing their own children for food. Others have dug up freshly buried bodies, eating whatever they can find. And yet, despite all this suffering, the government does nothing. While children starve, North Korea's elite dine on imported seafood, expensive liquor, and luxury meals flown in from around the world. Officials tell the starving population to tighten their belts. They claim that hunger is a test of loyalty. But for starving children, there is no loyalty, only survival. And for orphans, life is even worse, because if you have no parents, no family, no home, no one will come to save you. For North Korean orphans, life is worse than being on the streets. State-run orphanages are not places of care. They are places of suffering. Children are packed into freezing rooms with little food and no medical care. They are beaten for the smallest mistakes. Some never make it past childhood. Many orphans end up in forced labor, working from sunrise to sunset. Others are used for medical experiments or sent to military training camps. The government does not care. To them, these children are disposable, just another part of the system. But some orphans find another way to survive. They turn to the underground world of black markets. Some children refuse to starve. They find ways to survive by selling whatever they can on the black market. They smuggle food, steal from supply trains, and trade stolen goods. Some even become small-time traders, buying and selling foreign products. The risk is high. If caught, they face brutal punishment or worse, execution. But for many, there is no choice. It is starve or take the risk. These children learn the truth. They see how the outside world lives, and once they know, some decide to take the biggest risk of all. For some North Korean children, escape is the only hope. They cross frozen rivers into China, dodge border guards, and hide from traffickers. If they are caught, they are sent back or killed. The journey is brutal. Some die from the cold, others are captured and sold into slavery. Only a few make it to freedom. Even those who escape are never truly safe. The North Korean government hunts defectors, punishing not only them, but their families left behind. And if a child is caught trying to flee, their fate is worse than death. Getting caught means torture, prison, or execution. Children who try to escape are beaten until they confess. Some are sent to brutal labor camps, where they work until they die. Others are simply never seen again. If they are lucky, they are sent back to their villages as a warning to others. Starving, broken, and terrified. The government makes sure no one forgets what happens to traitors. Public executions, forced confessions, and brutal punishments keep the people in fear. But even with the danger, some still dream of freedom, because in the end, hope is the one thing the regime cannot kill. The future for North Korean children is uncertain. For most, life will be a cycle of hunger, fear, and control. But cracks are forming. More children are seeing the outside world. More are questioning the lies. More are risking everything for a chance at freedom. One day, change may come. Until then, the children of North Korea will keep fighting to survive, one day at a time.